Make way for Tim MacMahon, ESPN NBA reporter, and you can see his or listen to his podcast on the Hoop Collective, the band MacMahon, and the book The Wonder Boy, Luka Doncic and the Curse of Greatness. Good to see you again, Tim. What kind of reaction do you think Luka gets tonight?
Howdy, Dan. It is going to be a surreal night here in Dallas. And look, this is a heartbroken fan base to this day. Certainly a lot of anger, outrage in the wake of the trade. That is starting to kind of turn into apathy. There will be nothing apathetic about the reception that Luka receives tonight. This is going to be a fan base that felt betrayed by this trade, that is celebrating 6.5 years of spectacular brilliance and mourning that it wasn't much, much, much longer than that. And then, the Mavericks as an organization, they're in this awkward spot, right? They dumped this dude. He didn't want out. He was closing on a house, his American Forever home in Dallas, lost his earnest money. Not that he can't afford it, but this guy was locked in long-term to Dallas, couldn't wait to sign the Supermax contract. They dumped him in the middle of the night. They pretty much publicly shamed him on the way out. And now they've got to show some appreciation. You'll like these. Oh, these are classy. Should soothe any hard feelings. These are the shirts on the seats tonight. I don't know how to pronounce that last word. There's, Versi, I don't know. Havala sa Vise, Versi, whatever. Thanks for everything in Slovenian. Should certainly soothe any hard feelings. There will be, I don't know how you say appreciate it, pal, in Slovenian. There will be a tribute video play, but let's just call it like we see it. This is going to be extraordinarily awkward because the only way that the Mavericks could attempt to justify trading a generational talent as he approaches his prime was to dump on him, was to cite the conditioning concerns, the culture concerns, all those sort of things, which Mavs fans didn't want to hear. Luka certainly felt a certain way about it. And then, Luka last night said he doesn't know how he's going to react. It's going to be emotional. He's used to being the enemy in arenas. He's used to kind of thriving off of that energy. As we saw last night, he's used to kind of going back and forth with fans on the road. He's not used to an entire arena wrapping their arms around him and kind of loving him up. And it'll be very interesting to see how he handles that.
If Mark Cuban was still the majority owner, does this deal happen?
Hell no. 0.0% chance. Cuban tried to talk Nico Harrison out of it, but Cuban got a 5-minute heads up. There's this, the equivalent of a handshake agreement on the deal by the time Cuban got a heads up on it. But no, when Cuban lost juice, that made this trade a remote possibility. And look, man, Mark Cuban essentially as the general manager of the Mavericks for 20 some odd years, had plenty of personnel missteps. When we can go back to Steve Nash, the Porzingis trade ended up being a dud in Dallas. They completely bungled the Brunson situation. I could go on and on. One thing he got right was that Luka Doncic was the guy to take the torch from Dirk. Luka Doncic was the guy to build around. And Cuban's strategy with Luka, to just put it bluntly, was to kiss his butt and make sure he did everything possible to ensure that Luka was happy in Dallas long term. And I think that's a reasonable strategy with this level of superstar. Luka's not the only superstar in the league who gets his butt kissed on a regular basis, but they went from kissing his butt for 6 years to stabbing him in the back in year 7, fresh off a finals appearance. There's no way that happens if Cuban's still in charge.
You speak about kind of enabling and kissing Luka's butt. You write the book, The Wonder Boy, The Curse of Greatness. We had Vincent Goodwill from Yahoo Sports on last hour, and he said, because I was asking him about this behavior that Luka has, that he has 73 technicals in the last 5 years, most of anybody in the NBA. And Vincent said, he's been enabled his entire life, probably hasn't been told no, and is used to getting his way. You were around him writing this book. Can you see any kind of relationship between how he's brought up and how he acts on the court?
Well, I mean, listen, a lot of superstars around the NBA are enabled, and Luka's flaws are as obvious as his talent. There's two main flaws: the conditioning concerns, which honestly is as much about diet as it is conditioning. Does the guy enjoy a post game brewski or twoski? Yes. His post game routine and sometimes the summer routine are way too similar to mine, which you can get away with as a sports writer. You can, but you know what's crazy? I was about to say you can't get away with it as an NBA superstar, but he's a 5-time first team All NBA selection who hasn't hit his prime. He's been to the finals. He took another completely different supporting cast to the conference finals. And that's part of it is like, you could tell him, hey, Luka, you got to change your approach. Luka, you got to lay off the refs. The petulance is not helping you. But it's hard to say, dude, you've got to really change your ways when this dude was a legitimate MVP candidate before he could legally buy one of those beers in America. I mean, at the age of 20, he was putting up historically dominant numbers. His rookie year, he arrived and it was like he was an instant star and the ascension was quick. And it's hard to say, hey, what you're doing is not working when, yeah, it was. I mean, was it perfect? Could he have been better? You could argue that, but it's hard to say his way didn't work when his accomplishments at the age of now 26 stack up with the very best who have ever played in the league.
Tim MacMahon, ESPN NBA reporter, covering Luka's return to Dallas, the Lakers and the Mavs, 7:30 Eastern on the mothership. Mike Breen, Doris Burke, Richard Jefferson will have the call in Tim's book, The Wonder Boy, Luka and the Curse of Greatness, now available online wherever books are sold. We were shocked with Luka. We were shocked with what happened in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Both are hard to explain, but with Denver at the end of the season, tell me what the logic is to do this right now to fire your coach and GM.
Yeah, and let's just be straight. You were shocked Luka was traded, period.
Yeah.
You're shocked that Malone was fired now.
Yes.
With a few games left in the regular season. Like everybody, like it was not a secret that there had been more than a Cold War, like just, pretty much warfare between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. And the anticipation was it's going to be one or the other this summer. Well, Josh Kroenke, the face of the Nuggets ownership group, basically said, no, it's going to be both of them now. And what I was told is his explanation internally, as he's meeting with people in the Nuggets organization was, hey, this was an unsustainable situation. And it felt like, the plane was crashing. And the co-pilots were so busy bickering at each other and making it about themselves, talking about Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, that he just needed to, get them both out of the equation. Now, just looking at it from my perspective, with Michael Malone, he's the most successful coach in Nuggets history. Wins record, both regular season, playoffs, a title 2 years ago. I would have thought that would have earned him the right to have one last crack at a playoff run to try to save his job. But Josh Kroenke decided, no, we need to get these guys out of the mix right now. And in his mind, that's the only way they're going to have a chance to salvage this season and put together a playoff run.
Do you think Luka ends his career in Denver?
Luka in Denver?
I mean, Joker. Oh. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to shock you.
Listen, I've been shocked by Luka transactions before.
Joker, do you think Joker ends his career in Denver?
So one thing I always try to be careful about is putting words in somebody's mouth or speaking on something that I haven't spoken directly to a person about. So with that clarification, what I would say is everything about Joker is indicated that he's kind of cut from that Dirk cloth, that extreme loyalty. Like Dirk, he does have a championship. So it's not like he maybe will have to chase a ring somewhere else down the stretch of his career. So my guess would be that, yes, he is a Denver Nugget from start to finish of his career. But I mean, if that situation melts down in Denver and he looks around and it's, and he's playing on a mediocre team, I don't know. And you know what? Maybe, maybe he just says to hell with it. I'm gonna go ride my horses in Serbia.
I'll give you OKC or the field in the West.
I still take Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And look, man, the Thunder are going to set the NBA record for the best point differential in a season. Like, that's not nothing. Have they done it? Have they made a deep playoff run? Obviously not. But this is a team that gave the Mavericks a hell of a series last year. The cumulative score in that series was even, by the way, dead even. So gave the Mavericks the best fight in the Western Conference and then got significantly better, bringing in Isaiah Hartenstein, bringing in Alex Caruso, two veteran role players, Caruso with championship experience that fit perfectly. And then internally, all their young guys got better, including the guy who's probably going to be the MVP of the league this year, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who, by the way, was spectacular in the playoffs last year. Yeah, this dude is significantly better than he was last year as the MVP runner up. Jalen Williams, first All Star appearance. Learn from a disappointing playoff run. So yes, I would take OKC against the field in the Western Conference. Having said that, literally from the 1-8 series on, they're going to be facing quality competition. They're going to be in a fight every single playoff series.
And that loss by Minnesota last night was
Oof.
mind-boggling and costly. How do
Mm-hmm.
you I know they're a dangerous team, but they're dangerous to themselves as well, Tim.
No
I
doubt.
don't understand that. You blow a lead that big?
Well, and the Timberwolves' biggest flaw by a country mile is they stink at closing games. They're a good comeback team, but protecting a lead, they're awful. And I think a big part of that is you have a young ascending star in Anthony Edwards who is very much still learning on the job, a brilliant talent, a guy who you love to have as the foundation piece of your franchise, but 23 years old. And he's not like a Luka or a LeBron or a Joker in the sense of like just has this unbelievable natural feel. Those guys are like Jimi Hendrix. They pick up a guitar and they just feel it. They just know how to play it. Where Anthony Edwards is learning how to read sheet music. And sometimes it's like, I don't want to see that crap. And his tendency is to lean into hero ball down the stretch of games. And a lot of times that blows up in his face and the Timberwolves' face. And that's why there might be a 7 seed or an 8 seed instead of a 2 or a 3.
Good to talk to you. Always great. Good luck with the book. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Appreciate you having me.
That's Tim MacMahon, ESPN NBA reporter. Also, he has a podcast on the Hoop Collective and his new book, The Wonder Boy. It's Luka and the Curse of Greatness.